participate. And so they said, okay, we're pretty certain that this can't happen. We haven't ruled out everything, but it looks to us like that won't occur. And as it turns out, it's not.
Yeah. Well, we're still here.
We're still here, right? So, but there was that risk. They had eliminated it quite nicely to a large extent, but they hadn't absolutely eliminated it. But they had been able to go through some extensive calculations showing that this was highly unlikely for the nitrogen fusion, but they hadn't necessarily eliminated, or they considered the possibility that they hadn't thought of everything. But they decided to go ahead and do it anyway, and it turns out it was safe. And then they had the same consideration when they had to go through and do the H-bomb. And I read through the papers on that, and they were fairly well put together and such. And the risk analysis was fairly substantial on it, and it came up. And I agreed essentially with their conclusions that the risk is very low. But I don't necessarily want to go back and say I would have done the same thing. I don't think I would have.
Right.
But now in hindsight, we know, okay, well, it was safe. But we're in the same situation now. We don't know whether or not these strains, if they can be created, A, and B, if they can be created, whether they are benign as suggested by some theory or dangerous as suggested by others. And if they are dangerous, how long does it take for them to manifest that danger? Does it happen during a decade, a century, a millennium? We don't know that either. So there are a lot of unknown questions.
Those are pretty serious questions, too. You think about it. It's something that could consume the whole planet.
Right.
That's
that's pretty serious. Exactly.
That's like major leagues.
We know that there are fusion reactions that occur that consume entire bodies. That's what a supernova is. That all of a sudden the outward push of the energy release is overcome by the inward pull of the gravitational collapse, and it suddenly develops a huge release of energy. And we don't really know if that's a possibility or if it can be triggered by strangelets instead. If that might be a triggering factor. There are a huge number of questions that have been raised and not satisfactorily answered in the literature. And so basically, as I see it, is they are trying to make the critics look like they are dumb or don't know what they're talking about, and going through with this. Well, we've already shown that it's impossible to create these things, and so on and so forth. We have previous particle colliders that show that this can't happen, and that's really not the case. And then at the same time, they have other groups within the organization that are looking to detect them, just in case they're made.
Right. Hey, now here's a question from the chat room, and this is a pretty serious concern for a lot of people out there. And the question is the Large Hadron Collider connected to the powers that be or the elite, and do they want to open a porthole to the dark side beings upon this earth? Meaning, can they open portals to other dimensions with this collider? Is it possible?
Well, that we don't really know what these quote other dimensions would be because there's no evidence whatsoever for them. So whether or these dark beings, whatever those might be as well. So whether or not that is a possibility, it's not being discussed, as far as I know, by anybody in the physics community. It might be discussed in the science fiction community, and I don't want to necessarily rule it out, but it's not being discussed as a plausible thing. The second part is CERN connected to the powers that be. Yes, it's entirely funded by the taxpayers. It does not produce a product that can be used to pay its own way. They get funding from the taxpayers of Europe, and they get funding from the taxpayers of the U.S.
Really? So what you're saying then is that even though everybody's broke, they still have enough money to shove over this way, over to
right. There's always that quest in science, particularly in pure science, that doesn't have an immediate return. It's just pure research. Right. For those dollars, and whoever howlers the loudest gets the money, basically, is the way it boils down to. And they've got more people hollering for the money than critics such as myself and others, and other groups that are clamoring for the same money. So it ends up going to them. I would prefer, and this doesn't tie into the research. The research is interesting for myself because I have a physics background, but in terms of its overall value, I would much prefer to see that money spent on the space program research or research for finding out all of the unknown species of life that still exist on this planet. We know that there are huge numbers of species of life that have not been detected based upon the rate of finding new species every year. We are continuing to find new species, hundreds of them, thousands even, every year. And so you're not going to have a sudden drop off where you don't find any more. And we found all of them, So we know there are a lot of unknown species. Same thing with fossil species. We can estimate how many are left to be discovered because of the rate at which they're finding fossils out in the Gobi Desert and elsewhere. Every year they come up with new fossils that they find. So to me, those are also extremely interesting areas of science that I would love to see far more funding in those areas, or practical stuff, finding out a viable means for getting all of our mass transportation into electric vehicles of some sort.
And yeah, absolutely. And Griff, isn't it amazing that here we are, broke as a joke, can't pay our bills, and they're pumping all this money into CERN? Don't you think?
Yes, I saw in the news tonight that England has offered to help bail Ireland out financially. Now, England is in serious trouble. Where the hell are they going to get the money from to bail Ireland? Doctor, I had a question. Is this experiment, is this operation in Switzerland registered as a European equivalent 501c3 in Switzerland?
Meaning like a nonprofit organization?
Nonprofit, yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine it's probably considered as such. It's more like the Vatican State. It's its own country. It has been granted sovereign immunity by Switzerland. Other than for everything and anything it does, you can't sue them in the Swiss courts for any kind of tort action unless they grant permission for you to do so. And you can't sue them in France for the same reason. Part of it's in France, most of it's in Switzerland. So you can't sue them in those host states. It's its own territory, basically, and they are above the law in that regard. And so it's more like a rogue nation, sort of like North Korea in that regard.
Well, isn't that interesting?
It's a nation that's out there and it's got people there and so forth, but they don't follow the international rules.
That is incredibly interesting.
There was an old movie Peter Sellers starred in it. It was called The Mouse That Roared, and it was about a imaginary country of Fenwick who declared war on the United States. Do you remember that, Doctor?
I didn't actually see the movie, but I remember reading about it and hearing about it.
Yeah, they declared war in the United States, and they won the war, and it really it put a kink in their plans. They wanted the United States to fund support and aid to their country, but they won, so they didn't get the aid.
So,
you see, the operation in Switzerland could declare war on anybody, couldn't they? Since they're their own nation.
Well, yeah, there is one part in there that Switzerland does have the ultimate say, the Swiss Council, to go in and intervene if they feel that the Swiss nation is threatened.
Well, how could the Swiss nation intervene? They couldn't intervene anywhere. They don't have any right at all.
I was going to say, they're like the most neutral country in all of creation.
Well, I don't see that. Yeah, from what I've gathered, it takes Switzerland a very long time to accomplish any kind of referendum or going through Parliament and so forth. So I don't, and I am not, I've been monitoring some European politics going on in this regard, but I have not been involved in it. And it's a very cumbersome process from what I can gather. And but there are people who are actually filing lawsuits in Germany and other countries right now against CERN, and it's still a growing political issue over there.
Actually, it seems to me it should be.
I mean, it's most of the 90% of the funding has come from Europe and 10% from the U.S. So it is a European agency in that regard, a creation, if you will, of 20 European countries. It's its own little country there, Vatican State type country.
That's amazing. Does
the money come from the governments?
Hold on. Hold that question, Griff. We got to go to break. But when we come back, we'll continue on with our conversation with Dr. Walter Wagner. We got questions about antimatter, about CERN, anything you can speak of. We'll be right back. This is Freedomlink Radio on the Intel Hub News Network. Stay tuned.
Did you ever wish that you could have done something while you still had the chance? What will you do if your income ends tomorrow? Or if you lose your home, as many already have? Do you have enough money to survive through an economic depression? If you don't want to gamble with your future, then FreeToProsper.com can help you quickly end your debt problems, protect your property and possessions, and develop a personal strategy to get you through the hard times. Most importantly, you get to keep your money and not pay another cent to creditors. Our program is often superior to bankruptcy, consolidation, or settlement. Visit FreeToProsper.com to find out more. This is your real chance to act ahead, so don't delay. Your future may depend on it. Call 718-615-0123 to learn more. That's 718-615-0123. Or visit FreeToProsper.com today.
In a world where corrupt oppressors and oligarchs have seized control of the populations, total tyranny is amongst us. The burden of humanity rests on our shoulders. The only way out is to expose the global crime syndicate known as the New World Order. Together, we are all one. Together, we are Intel soldiers. The battle for free humanity ensues. Join us in the fight. TheIntelHub.com.
Secure your future. Get your non-hybrid seed pack now. With the looming economic crisis, food shortages, and other toxic disasters, now is the time to be ready. Just click on the Heirloom Organics banner at the top of our Blog Talk Radio page today. Secure your future and the future of your family in hard times. Heirloom Organic Seeds.
Hi, this is Bob Tuskin. Tune into my show, Truth Be Told Radio, Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
You are listening to the Intel Hub News Network, crushing the New World Order piece by piece.
We're back, folks, with our conversation with Dr. Walter Wagner. I do want to open up the phone lines to anybody that wants to call in. The number to call is 877-598-8549. That's 877-598-8549. Call in and sound off on CERN and the Large Hadron Collider. I'd really like to hear some feedback from the listening audience, too, as well. But, Griff, you had a question for Dr. Wagner when we left off, so I'll let you take it away.
Questions are flooding into my mind, one after another. Dr. Wagner,
go ahead.
I'm Griff in Richmond, Virginia. Joe's down in North Carolina, and John's up in Pennsylvania for some reference in your mind there. Do you know about...
spread me out. Go ahead.
Do you know about Tesla's scalar energy? SCALAR, a new word.
Yeah, I'm very vaguely familiar with it. I know that Tesla was trying to do something where you could. He had a large tower where he believes he could propagate energy to the
entire, it was the Wardenclyffe tower
from the entire globe. Yeah.
Yeah. J.P. Morgan pulled his funding.
Pardon?
J.P. Morgan pulled his funding and took the tower down.
Right. I knew it didn't come to anything, and I wasn't quite
we
certain
knew
as
that
to why.
we know that energy Tesla was really onto something. His scalar weapons system